usually a whisper ramble or some kind of positive affirmations, trigger assortments, stuff like that. So, if you enjoy my content, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, or a comment. Thank you so much. I have a lot to tell you guys, so I will put the start time of today's case right here for those of you that just want to get to the story. First, you probably noticed that my lighting is different. It is daytime, so I might mess with the exposure a little bit to make it more sleepy. But if you like the brighter lighting, let me know and I will do more in a less sleepy setting. So, second, I am going through a breakup, which I know is just so ironic because I just posted a Valentine's Day haul, but we were together 2 years. He lived with me, so I have been really busy helping him move his stuff out and back home. So there's that. It's not funny, but I'm like so bad at expressing those kinds of emotions on camera, but we are okay. It was very cordial, and so yeah, I don't want you guys to worry about me because I'm okay. It's just I've been really busy with changes around the house, so I think that was all I had to say, and I will do kind of an extended video, like a whisper ramble video about the breakup, and maybe turn it into some positive affirmations advice, because I know lots of people can probably relate to that sort of thing and just heartbreak in general. So, in case you just have so many questions, I won't go into detail, but we'll talk about it a little more in my next video. But today's case, disclaimer before we start, this is true crime. It contains violence. If that is not for you, please click off this video. Today's case is so heartbreaking, and it could have been so easily avoided. It's so tragic. And we will be talking about Egypt Covington. I have my computer here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Egypt Covington was 27 years old when she passed away. She was murdered on June 22nd, 2017. A little bit of her backstory. She was born July 19th in Detroit, Michigan to Chuck and Tina. She grew up in a big family, but her parents split when she was very young, and her father remarried. Her stepmother's name was Chris, and they had a very good relationship. She was very close to her mom and dad's side of her family, and people described her as being a person that you just became a better person when you hung out with her. She was kind and funny. She was a singer. She loved to perform for her family and friends, and she even wanted to audition for The Voice. And she grew up, her town specifically, was named Belleville, which was a very small town outside of Detroit. She worked as a bartender and was very well liked in her bar. She had lots of regulars, so she was very familiar with the people that came and went, and they all had great things to say about her. She started to work with a beer distribution company who, after she was killed, named a beer after her called A Girl Named Egypt, which is just so sad but so bittersweet that they did that for her. That's very special. Belleville was very small. In 2019, the population was less than 4,000, so it was very tight-knit. Everyone knew each other. People were in each other's business, so she had a long-term boyfriend named Curtis Meadows. They had decided they wanted to get married and had actually just made plans to move in together, but sadly this never happened. She lived in a flat, and it was those houses where it's two different places but you share a front door. It was like that, so you had a front door and there was a door to the left and to the right, and she had the one to the left. So on the morning of June 23rd, 2017, Curtis sent Egypt a good morning text. Usually she responded within 20 to 30 minutes, according to him. And so when she didn't, he texted her more. Still no response. So when he got off work, he drove to her house just to check on her. He noticed that her car was in the driveway, and he got a gut feeling something was wrong, because if her car was in the driveway, she should have her phone and be home, right? So he just felt something was very wrong. He parked his truck and he walked into her apartment. Her dog Ruby greeted him and led him into the house, where he found Egypt. She was laying on the kitchen floor, deceased. She was tied up and she had blood all over her head. The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the back of the head. She had been bound with Christmas lights, which detectives thought was very unusual, and it made them think that this was a last-minute attack. And they notified her family. I'm sorry if you just heard my stomach. So, when the news came out, it spread very fast, of course, because it was such a small town and everyone was heartbroken. Police thought Egypt had known her killers because they did not notice any signs of forced entry. So the first person they looked at was her long-term boyfriend Curtis, which is expected in these types of situations. So they questioned Curtis for hours upon hours, and police learned from him and their friends that the relationship could get rocky. They were always breaking up and getting back together, but at the time of her death, they seemed like they were doing good. And there were claims that they only broke up due to different work schedules. He worked morning and she worked night, so they were just living very separate lives. And he was very cooperative. Curtis was very cooperative. He answered all their questions. He offered information, was willing to do anything to help. So he was then eventually cleared, and they started looking at her ex-boyfriend, whose name was Kenny. He was described as jealous and a was a mechanic and they had dated for 3 years. After their breakup, Kenny started to stalk her. 5 days prior to her murder, Kenny, Curtis, and Egypt attended a festival called the Strawberry Festival, which was just, as it sounds, a strawberry market and games. It was said that the whole town went to this. It was a very popular event, so Egypt went with her boyfriend Curtis, and Kenny came by himself. Kenny was eavesdropping on them and heard that they were planning to move in together, at which point he was furious and confronted Egypt. They got into a heated argument and Egypt stormed off. Kenny was later picked up by police at a bar after her body was found. He said that on the night of the murder he had been bar hopping and had gone home by himself at 10 p.m. He was asked to take a polygraph and he failed his polygraph test terribly. In fact, he got one question right, and that question was his name. So they are very suspicious. Egypt's mom surprisingly stuck up for Kenny. Egypt's mom, Tina, was very close with Kenny and his family. But this caused a lot of tension because her mom sat with Kenny at her memorial service, at Egypt's memorial service. This caused a lot of tension, but she said that she knew Kenny was not a violent man. In March of 2018, police said that Kenny was the lead suspect in the case. He said that he and Egypt had stayed in contact for 8 months after their breakup, but it was friendly and they had just been hooking up. So, fast forward. A little bit later, Egypt's brother Dwayne starts dating a girl named Lindsay. Lindsay noticed that Dwayne's lock screen was a picture of Egypt. She did not know what happened and hadn't heard about it, so she asked him why his sister was his lock screen and what had happened, and he told her, and this really touched her. She started getting very curious and knew how heartbroken Dwayne was that this case was unsolved, so she decided that she was going to take matters into her own hands and investigate. So, Dwayne and Lindsay started their own digging, and they started to believe that Kenny was not the killer. However, the family and the town was very offended that she kind of stuck her nose in the case and was getting involved. People took it the wrong way. She said that after analyzing everything, she realized everything against Kenny was circumstantial evidence. And then she did not give up still on this theory. They looked into Egypt's neighbors. So Lindsay was like, basically, have you looked at anybody? Why are you making Kenny your prime suspect when this evidence is circumstantial? And in court, evidence is not supposed to be circumstantial because when they convict you, it has to be without a doubt. So, Michigan State Police came in and took over Egypt's case. Egypt had previously expressed concerns with her neighbors. She had said that she was uncomfortable living by them because they had a license to grow and sell medical marijuana. And since very uncomfortable because she said the people coming in and out of the house were often sketchy. So they looked into the neighbors, and turns out they had an alibi. They were 200 miles away at a music festival at the time of Egypt's murder. So they were ruled out. And 3 months after the police came in, they called Tina and told them that an arrest was made. No one knew who it was at this time, but in the last weeks of 2021, the names came out. Shane Evans, Timothy Moore, and Shandon Groom. Nobody in the town had heard of these people before, which, like we said, was unusual because they were a tight-knit town. Timothy and Shane were brothers, and Shandon was their cousin. Egypt went to high school with Shane, and he also cut her neighbor's lawn. So, Shane cuts her neighbor's lawn, the one that grows and sells marijuana, but they had been away several hundred miles at a music festival. So, Shane told police that on the night of the murder, Shandon and Timothy were visiting him from Toledo, Ohio. While they were hanging out, they expressed that they wanted to smoke some weed, and they all realized they did not have any, and Shane said that he knew a guy, Egypt's neighbor, who was not home. So they planned on going there anyway and robbing them and stealing their weed. Shane drove the truck, and when they got there, Shane claims that he pointed to the door on the right because remember, she lived in a home that was conjoined by the same front door. So Shane says he told them to go in the door on the right, where Egypt's neighbors lived, and Egypt was on the left. So, and I don't know if that's backwards because it's a camera, but you get what I mean. So Shane drove. They got there. He says, go in the door on the right. And Shandon and Timothy walked into the left door where they saw Egypt. She was sitting on the couch watching a movie by herself when they proceeded to bind her with Christmas lights and to shoot her in the back of the head using a pillow to muffle the sound. Shane claimed that they did not mention anything about the murder until later that night when Timothy texted him saying, quote, "Whoops, wrong door," end quote. That is so evil. And Shane said that when he got this text, he was confused and let it go. And when he heard about Egypt's death, he told these two men that he did not want to know what happened and to leave him out of it. So, this is Shane's story. We don't know if this is the truth or not, but that text was confirmed to have been sent, which is just unspeakable. So, Timothy and Shandon are facing charges of first-degree murder, and Shane is facing felony murder. They were arrested in November of 2020 and are still awaiting trial. So, police say they are certain that these men murdered her, and Kenny was dropped as a suspect in town. So, it's said that people are having a hard time letting Kenny go as a suspect, but clearly the police are handling this, and maybe when the trial happens, I will do an update. This case really got to me, to be honest. What a senseless crime. She had her whole life ahead of her. And these men, these boys, went and took it over what? Some weed? Like, are you kidding me? But, like, it's so confusing. Because if you walk into somewhere planning to rob someone, and you realize there's someone here, this isn't the place I was planning, wouldn't you be like, I'm sorry, wrong door, and turn around and walk away? Like, it just makes you wonder, why didn't they just turn around and leave? Was it on purpose that they went into the left door? I guess we won't know. We'll see how their trials go and listen to their testimonies, but I hope that all three of them are put away for life, because clearly you are a disturbed and dangerous individual. If you could do something so heartless and do it so casually, like that text, are you kidding me? It's just unthinkable. So I hope that they get what they deserve, and that this town of Belleville will feel some sort of closure. And please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for being here and for watching, and I will see